Hello, everybody. I have got Scott with me today, and we are going to be talking about ERP consolidation. But before we get into the questions that I have for you, Scott, would you mind giving a quick introduction for everybody?
Sure. My name is Scott Bendel. I'm the Chief Information Officer for Rigaku Americas Holdings. My team takes care of everybody that's outside of Japan. Our company is owned by a Japanese entity. There's about 1,000 people over there. We take care of the rest of the world, which is about 500 people. Total of 9 sites, 7 in the U.S., 2 in Europe. One of them is in Frankfurt, Germany. The other one is in Wrocław, Poland. So we manage all the activities, information, and information technology, the delivering email, the ERP platform, basically all the infrastructure, including phones for all those sites.
Wonderful. Thank you. So to get us started, I kind of teased the fact that we're talking about ERP consolidation, but could you share a little bit about that transformation and kind of consolidation effort?
Sure. So I've been doing this role for about 10 years. Just prior to moving into the role, I was on one of the project managers working on ERP consolidation. We had, at that time, 5 different ERP platforms because Rigaku in the United States and in Europe had grown by acquisition. So, they have all these legacy systems. So we worked with a consultant to look through all the various ERP platforms that, we could think of. I think we had a list of about 20. We went through, and based on the things that were important to us, of course, everything was important to us. We did manage to narrow it down from 20 to about 5. We sent out SOWs asking, here are the things that we're concerned about. How does your platform handle that? We had 3 respond with very good answers. We did kind of a bake-off where we did some of our activities within those systems and demonstrations. Ended up picking Enforce Sightline out of that process. So it was a big challenge to take all those locations that had been working on very different platforms. And in many ways, each of the manufacturing locations does something very different. We have some places that do service support. We have some places that do custom manufacturing, or some places that just build a stock type thing. So, all kind of different types of activity, and not a lot of intercompany sales. So we had to take a great deal of time with the consultants where we brought everybody in, representatives from each of the locations, to say, well, here's how we do this job, and working through to understand how does the purchasing function work, or how does the manufacturing activity get scheduled, or how does engineering create a part and get it into a bill of materials. So there was a great deal of concern because we had all grown up separately, that it would be very different. And one of the great things that came out of that effort was we discovered we did things very much more similar than we thought we did. So that helped break a lot of ice into consolidating onto a single platform.
Wonderful. So what approach did you find to be most successful during that initial planning phase to kind of get everybody on board? You mentioned the idea that things were much more similar than maybe different, but what insights did you gain about the business beyond the fact that they were similar, and kind of how to look at this enterprise approach?
So the activity of interviewing each of the groups, like the purchasing group or the engineering group, you got a great deal of information about how does that work process flow, and if you think about that kind of like from top to bottom, here's how we buy something and bring it in and all that and schedule it and all that. Same thing with engineering. But the reality of ERP is that, if we think about the individual departments running up and down, ERP kind of cuts across those platforms because you have to engineer a product, you have to schedule it, you have to buy it, you have to consume it, you have to ship it. So those things all kind of run across, break all the barriers between the departments. So it was a great insight to help us understand how do we get these departments to work together, because once we understood what goes on in those departments, we could understand what other departments needed to feed to them in order for those people to properly do their jobs.
Wonderful. So one thing that I kind of giggled when you said was that everything was important to your team. And one of the pieces that I hear from a lot of folks when we're taking an enterprise approach is that sometimes the change management side of things can be difficult because you're not going to be able to meet 100% of the list for everybody across the board when you're looking at that. So I guess, did you guys run into any challenges with maybe some of those process changes, and how did you combat those?
Yes, we did. before we started the implementation, there was a big debate whether we were going to do this a big bang approach, all sites implemented at once, or sites implemented serially. Physically we couldn't be in 9 sites at once, so we did have to go serially. We started at our site in Carlsbad, California. And as we were doing that implementation, we realized that we're making decisions that were going to affect things down the road. So we documented that, and for lack of a better name, we called it the Book of Rigaku. And we sort of said, okay, this is a decision we've made, and we documented why we made it, and we retained it in that book. And we kept that on SharePoint for everybody to see, so that as we went through the process, we didn't have to have those arguments over and over and over again, because kind of everybody does have an opinion and they want to have input. But if you can kind of cut through that ice with saying, all right, really, I had that discussion, and here's how we arrived at the decision that we did, that really helped us a lot.
I think that idea of making sure to document the why and have that kind of intellectual knowledge retained across the entire implementation is a really powerful thing. I really appreciate you joining me today to talk through these lessons learned, and hopefully they will help a couple of other people that are embarking on this journey as well. But I encourage anybody that has additional questions to reach out to Scott via his LinkedIn, and I'm sure he'd be happy to help answer. But thank you very much, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you, Emma.